If you want to be 100% carnivore, then no, you shouldn't be using herbs and spices because herbs and spices are plants, and on the carnivore diet, you should only be consuming animal products. However, if you would like to add in herbs and spices, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no right or wrong way to follow the carnivore diet. As long as you're consuming meat, then you could put herbs and spices on there. Me personally, I'm fine with just adding salt to my food. So the last 3.5 months, the only thing I've been adding to my food is salt. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome back to another Sunday Q&A. Before we start, just a quick reminder that if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our videos. Also, if you have any questions, ask them down in the comment section and we'll either respond to you directly in the comment section or answer your questions during another one of our weekly Sunday Q&As. Alright, time to answer your questions. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome back to another Sunday Q&A. Today's question is with regard to herb and spice usage while on the carnivore diet. A lot of you want to know what types of herbs and spices I use and should you be using herbs and spices while on the carnivore diet. And the truth is there's no right or wrong answer. It's going to depend on your personal preference and just how strict you want to be. If you want to be 100% carnivore, then no, you shouldn't be using herbs and spices because herbs and spices are plants, and on the carnivore diet, you should only be consuming animal products. However, if you would like to add in herbs and spices, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no right or wrong way to follow the carnivore diet. As long as you're consuming meat, then you could put herbs and spices on there. Me personally, I'm fine with just adding salt to my food. So the last 3.5 months, the only thing I've been adding to my food is salt. But that's just me. Me personally, I'm fine with just adding salt. I can eat meat just with salt. I don't need to add a bunch of other stuff. I don't get bored. So if you're the type of person that needs some herbs and spices to change up the flavors a little bit so that you don't get bored and it allows you to adhere to the diet better, then by all means, go ahead, add herbs and spices. It really comes down to personal preference and how strict you want to be when following it. Now, some things that I have used in the past, again, the last 3.5 months, all I've used is salt. But in the past, I used to use spices such as ginger, cinnamon, cumin, turmeric, oregano, basil, all that type of stuff. So if you want to use spices, go for it. And the same thing is true when it comes to vegetables. If you want to add some baby spinach or other types of vegetables to the carnivore diet, again, you don't have to be all in on the carnivore diet. Do what works for you. If adding in some baby spinach or some broccoli or some very low carb vegetables is going to make you adhere to the carnivore diet, then go ahead and add in those vegetables. You don't have to be 100% on the carnivore diet. Do what works for you. If veganism works for you, go vegan. You don't have to be carnivore. Do what works for you. Listen to your body. Don't blindly follow any diet just because anyone says that it works. For me personally, I've mentioned this in the past. The 3 diets that work best for me: paleo, keto, and carnivore. Those are the 3 diets that I've been alternating over the last 10 years, since January of 2010, back when I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Now, for me, those 3 diets work for me. If those 3 diets don't work for you, don't do them just because I'm doing them. Do what works for you. Experiment with different diets. If veganism works for you, great, be vegan. If carnivore works for you, great, be carnivore. If neither of those work and you need a mix of food, then mix up your food. You don't need to be super strict if it's not working for you. Now, if you are super strict and it does work for you and it doesn't bother you at all, then keep doing what you're doing. All you really need is meat and salt. You don't need to be adding in all these herbs and spices. Only add them in if it allows you to adhere to the diet better and makes it more enjoyable for you. You don't want to be following a diet if it's not enjoyable. If it's not enjoyable, it's not sustainable. If it's not sustainable, you're not going to have long-lasting results. That's why it's very important to follow a diet that you enjoy doing. And that's one thing when I have coaching clients, I tell them all the time. It doesn't matter what diet you follow. Find what works for you and then do that. It doesn't have to be paleo, it doesn't have to be vegan, it doesn't have to be carnivore, it doesn't have to be keto. It could be vegan one week, carnivore the next week, paleo the next week. You can change your diet up from time to time. You don't have to stick to one diet for the rest of your life. Me personally, the last 3.5 months, I've been carnivore. Before that, I experimented with veganism, vegetarian, paleo, keto. I'm always changing up what I'm doing. For right now, the last 3.5 months, it's been working great for me, so I'm going to keep doing it. As soon as I find that it stops working for me, I'm going to change it. I'm not just going to keep following a diet just because it used to work for me in the past, and now that it's not working, I'm going to just keep doing it, hoping that I can achieve what I originally achieved when I first started the diet. It doesn't make any sense.
I've used that approach when it comes to every diet that I've done in the past. Back in January of 2015, I wanted to experiment with the vegan diet for 3 months. And the first 2 weeks were great, felt amazing. A lot of digestion issues cleared up. After 2 weeks, digestion issues kept getting worse and worse, and my health kept deteriorating. But I wanted to finish up the 3 months because I told myself I was going to give myself 3 months to try it and do it as best as I possibly could. At the end of those 3 months, I felt absolutely terrible. I was feeling really, really weak. My energy levels were non-existent. So I went straight from vegan to carnivore, and all my issues resolved within 3 to 4 days. I was getting diarrhea, loose stool every single day that I was on the vegan diet, and within 3 to 4 days of going carnivore, all that went away. So again, if that hadn't happened, if I felt amazing the entire 3 months, I would have kept doing the vegan diet and I wouldn't have done the carnivore. And same thing with carnivore. The last 3.5 months, as I've been fine-tuning it, I keep feeling better and better the more I kind of fine-tune it a little bit. But if I fine-tune it and I find that I'm still feeling like shit, I'm not going to keep doing the carnivore diet because it doesn't make sense to keep following it. So those are the biggest things I could say. With regard to herbs and spices, if you need to add herbs and spices to your food to be able to adhere to the carnivore diet, then go ahead, add herbs and spices. There's no strict rules against it. If anybody tells you that you shouldn't be adding that, then don't bother listening to them, or just say, okay, fine, I'm not carnivore then. I'm a meat eater who adds herbs and spices. But you don't need to be strictly meat and salt the entire time, especially if you're not going to enjoy it and it's not going to allow you to adhere. Do what works for you, experiment with different things, even if you want to add in some vegetables. If that's what works for you and that's going to allow you to adhere, do it. For me, I'm fine just eating meats. I can eat steak with salt all day long, nothing else, and I'll be perfectly fine with that. Other people, they might be able to do that for a day or two, but then they'll get really, really bored and they'll have to change it up. What works for me might not work for you. So don't do the things that I'm doing just because I'm saying it works for me. Try it, see if it works for you. And if it does work for you, great, keep doing it. If it's not working for you, experiment, see what does work for you. So don't be afraid to experiment with herbs, spices, even adding in a little bit of fruits and vegetables if that's what you want. You don't need to be carnivore. You don't need to be anything really. Just do you, find out what works for you, and that's really the best advice I could give you. That's pretty much it for today's video. Thanks again for tuning in. If you have any other questions with regard to my experience with the carnivore diet, or if you have any questions at all with regard to the carnivore diet, or any other questions at all with regard to exercise programs, stretching, physiology, anything at all, go ahead, ask your questions down in the comment section. I'll either respond to you directly in the comment section or answer your questions during another one of our Sunday Q&As. That's it for today's video. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and I will see you again next week.
That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in. If you liked what you saw, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our videos. And if you have any questions, ask them down in the comment section, and we'll either respond to you directly in the comment section or answer your questions during another one of our weekly Sunday Q&As. Keep fit, have fun, and we'll see you again next week.